The reason why men so easily abandon their children is because when a woman is pregnant and when a man is just there beside a woman during the pregnancy, they're having two completely different experiences. A woman that is pregnant is literally seeing her child as her child because she's using her calcium. She is using her red blood cell production. Okay, she is using all of her vitamins, all of her minerals. She is literally using everything of her own life force to give life to something else. Men look at their children like cousins, okay? They literally view their own children as cousins because guess what? They didn't have to partake in this life-changing endeavor where they literally had to sacrifice their own body to give life to something else. This is the reason why women have a fuck around and find out season when it comes to the man that they have children with, because a lot of the things too is that just because your man is a good partner does not automatically deem him to be a good father because he has not had to put in the sacrifice. I look at it like this. When you're a child and you live under the roof of your parents, you don't care about scribbling on the walls, okay? You don't care about making messes and spills on their fucking white carpet because you're not paying the bills there, okay? You don't have to be invested because you are not sacrificing anything in the process, okay? When you have your own home that you're paying a mortgage or rent on, you care about the cleanliness, okay? You care about damages and things going wrong in the home, in messes, in spills, and potentially people ruining your property because you are investing in the place that you live in. This is how the difference is between men and women. Men are living under the roof with their parents, scribbling on the walls, having spills and messes and not giving a damn because they're not investing anything into the process. Women are the ones owning the home, owning the place, and it's theirs to protect. They are investing into what it is that they have. Do not sit here and think that these men are having the same experience as you. That's why that one girl a few weeks back got on here and had literally asked her baby daddy, husband, fiance, I don't know what he was to her. All I know is that her baby, that's the father of her baby. She asks him, so are you excited? Like, how different is our life going to be when we have children? And he's like, our life isn't going to be different at all. Not realizing his life isn't going to be different at all because it's never changed. His life has not changed at all. The only person's life that has changed has been her life because she has been the one to invest. This is also the same thing with Nelly and Ashanti. Of course, Nelly is going to sit here and say, oh, I'm not going to invest anything until they're able to, walk and talk. I want to come in at the easy time. I don't want to invest all of this effort that it takes at the earliest developmental and also the most pivotal years of my own child's life. Men literally treat their own children like cousins, okay? They want to come and go as they please. Dap them up, talk to them, have, cool conversations, not have any crazy falling out. And then when they're ready and they don't want to talk to them or they don't feel like talking to them, they're going to wipe their hands clean with them and keep it fucking moving, okay? They do not care about them actually having a bond with the child because they never had a bond to begin with. More and more women need to realize the experience that men are having while you are pregnant because they're living in an alternate reality because they are not having to put forth anything to create this child like you do. This is why it's always going to be a hands-off approach with a lot of these men because they were never hands-on to begin with. One reason why the nuclear family was so heavily promoted by the government was because they wanted to give men as fathers the ability to be PDF files without actually having to go out and find a child. That is what my theory is. I literally just posted a video talking about how men being deadbeats is the natural order. And historically, children were always raised in a village with nothing but women. men were never in the picture. I was raised by a village of women and no women. And even when my father was in my life until he wasn't allowed to be, per a situation. Then he was allowed to come back into my life per my mother's approval. And I did not welcome him back in my life with open arms because I enjoyed my matriarch so much. But I genuinely believe that one of the reasons for the nuclear family was to allow men to come in close proximity to children and for them to be able to secretly do things to their own children, so that way it will be harder for them to get caught. Men don't have a vessel of life, okay? They do not have a life force. They have a Y chromosome, which has their genetic material very, very small, very, very condensed, as opposed to women having two X chromosomes. Men are always looking for some type of life force, and there is no stronger life force than you can have than a child. Okay, this is also why I feel as though why a lot of men are so pro-life. A lot of men are fucking pro-life because they want to have more options to touch on that demographic. I'm just keeping it real. That's honestly a big reason why I feel as though a lot of them are so pro-choice. They want more kids to choose from, honestly, especially when even statistically, only boys are impacted by not having a father in the home. Girls are not heavily impacted by not having a father in the home because of this shit. Because of how the fathers are looking at their daughters. And a lot of daughters can attest to the fact that once they reach a certain age, once they get into that pubescent, prepubescent, and you become a woman and now you have the ability to get pregnant, fathers don't look at their daughters the same anymore because they start realizing, oh shit, she actually is getting closer to becoming a woman, as if she was going to be a woman that I would be out here dating personally in my life. And so what happens is that they have to like consciously think in their brain how to cut that shit off and try to reason with that thought that they are having, where it's like, I've literally schmexualized my own daughter while she's been a child, and then now that she's actually like getting closer to being an adult, I can't be turned on to that point. Because then it's like you have to cut that shit off, because then what are you going to do next? You're going to date your own daughter. You're going to sleep with your own daughter. These men, especially like if you have a husband, or you have a male in your life and like he's afraid to change little girls' diapers, he starts freaking out. It's always the men that have an issue with changing diapers. They either fear changing diapers, or they're like very, very like hyper vigilant when it comes to the privates of another child. Those most specifically are the ones that you got to look out for them. Okay? Because for a lot of them, the whole purpose of them even wanting a child in the first place was because they wanted a child readily available for their own pleasure. I enjoyed growing up in a family with nothing but women, that I willingly allowed my father to be a deadbeat, even when he attempted not to be. So my mother had me very young, and so I grew up in a household with 3 generations. It was my grandmother, my mother, and then myself. So my mother had went away to school, and so when she was away for school, my grandmother raised me, and then I pretty much was raised between, I'd say, probably 5 to 6 different female cousins. And they, like, honestly, they doted on me so freaking much. Like, they always told me, like, how I was pretty. They always, like, affirmed my worth. They always affirmed my beauty. They always affirmed my intelligence. And then my grandmother did everything possible in her power that she could to be able to give me a better life. So when I was younger, we grew up, my mom and my grandmother didn't grow up in like the best areas. And so once we had started seeing that like the crime was really bad in my area, like my grandmother like really did everything that she could, and she ended up buying her first home. And so all three of us ended up living in that home in a much nicer area. A lot of people think that I make my content and it's coming from like a tainted place. It's coming from a very hurt place. And thankfully, because I had such a strong matriarch, I didn't really have to go through any of this turmoil with men, which is why I make the content that I make, because I grew up in a family that was anti being male-centered. I would go as far as to say my family would actually shame male-centered women in the family to essentially get them into submission to not be male-centered. And my grandmother was married for about 7 years, and as soon as her ex-husband put his hands on her, she ended up leaving him. And so that's how essentially like we created this family unit. And there was only, my grandmother's one of 5 sisters, and so essentially it's all girls in the family. And so there was only one woman that stayed married out of all 5 of the sisters. And yeah, that situation really wasn't all that good either. She just decided to stay, but everybody else was married. They got divorced and they never remarried again. And even with my mom, I only see my mom be in like one argument like with a man, and I never seen that man again. I didn't grow up seeing dysfunction between like a man and a woman ever, because it was not tolerated. Also, my grandmother has a college education. She's a retired school teacher. My mother has a college education. She is a registered nurse. And then I also have a college education, and I work in ultrasound. So that was another thing too. Also, my grandmother and all 5 of her sisters, except one, they're all college educated. Okay. So that was just kind of the norm for me, to kind of like have community with women, focus on my education, and to really not be male-centered. And then even then, like, I have a lot of cousins. They are childless, and they're child-free, and they're not married. They refuse to get married. They refuse to have children, or maybe a few of them ended up marrying and then decided that they were not going to marry again. I come from a very educationally heavy matriarch. Okay, that was like a very big thing when it came to what I was taught, and like the values that were instilled with me was to essentially like take care of your mind and make sure that you are constantly expanding your mind and you are constantly allowing yourself to be educated. My family also put me in sports very young. So I started gymnastics when I was like maybe 5 years old. And so that instilled like a very strong work ethic in me. And it also allowed me to just like be expressive. You know, I was doing like plays and musicals and stuff when I was young too. But I guess that also helped me in my dynamics with relationships with men, because my tolerance for bullshit was always so low, because I didn't grow up in an environment where I was seeing a woman have to repeatedly tolerate a man disrespecting her, or a man raising his voice at her, or even like a man putting his hands on somebody. Like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've never witnessed it before. So the matriarch that I, ended up growing up into, I feel as though they're the reason why I really didn't have to go through all of this like turmoil with men, and I didn't have to go through all these like realizations, because it's like, growing up, I had noticed, I was like, oh my God, like I have a lot of cousins who are traveling, a lot of cousins who they're very, very well accomplished, and like they didn't have children and they didn't get married. And I had just started noticing that like the women that I did know that ended up having children and getting married, like, I mean, no offense, but it's just like they look worn the fuck out. They look exhausted. They don't look fulfilled. And so at a very young age, the wheels had already kind of started turning in my brain, where I was just like, something is telling me that like what the women in my family are doing by deciding to like not have children and to not get married, I feel as though they're doing something right, because my mom made it very clear to me that like I was going to be her only child. So that already had told me that like, okay, this child shit, having a child shit, this shit is hard, because if you like something enough, you're gonna do it again. Okay, I don't care what anybody fucking says, but if you genuinely like something, you're going to want to do it more than once. So I already kind of figured like, okay, so having a child, like, and I could just tell, like, you know, it was a lot. You know, I could tell that it was a lot for my mother to be a mother and all the things that it comes with, even though she had community and she had help when it came to, you know, being able to raise me. But I am so blessed that I grew up in a matriarchy. I am so blessed that I grew up in an environment with women who were not male centered, and women who never put men on a pedestal, and always knew their worth, always knew their value, and always had a common goal for themselves that they were going to make sure that they met. Like, I literally have a cousin who is 50 years old, and like she's in school now to get her PhD. She's a book writer. I mean, she's traveled all over the place. I mean, like, she's a very accomplished woman. She was only married once, got divorced, and she never had any children. And like, she's beautiful. Okay, she's absolutely beautiful. So I honestly preferred having a matriarch than I ever would have enjoyed living under a 2-parent household. It's a humble brag, but I do have 2 half siblings. One of them was raised under a 2-parent household, and it's like, it's no diss, you know, to her or anything, but I fared out the best, okay? Even on my father's side, like, even my grandfather on my father's side literally said that. He was like, you turned out the best, and your mom, whatever she did everything right with you, because I did turn out really, really good, and I really do attribute it to being raised in a matriarch. And I think that this is something that more and more women need to normalize. Like, more women need to normalize that if you're going to have a child, you need to have a child and raise that child within community with other women. Men are not supposed to be around your children, especially if you have daughters. That was one thing that my mom was like very, very heavy on, you know. I think once she realized male nature, I think she really started to realize, you want to know what? I cannot have men around my child. And so my mom just kept her head down. You know, she ended up, you know, becoming an LPN, and then she went back to school to become an RN to get her bachelor's. And, you know, just seeing the example set by the women in my family really showed me that this whole children and marriage stuff, you know, honestly, this shit's for the birds. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to partake in this. And so I'm really grateful because I didn't have to go through all of this stuff. And I felt very good to leave when I would see red flags right away. And I wouldn't feel as though I had to hold on to something even though it wasn't serving me. So I'm always going to be for team matriarch. I'm never going to support a 2-parent household with a man and a woman together under the same household. I feel as though it's very detrimental, specifically for daughters. Okay, specifically if you have a daughter, especially. But yeah, that was my experience on how I grew up under a matriarch. Working in the strip club, I found that the number one demographic of men that go were married men. And I would probably say 95% of those married men, the first lead opening conversation that they would have when I was a stripper was that they fully admitted that they hated their wives. They fully admitted that they could not stand their wives. They fully admitted that they hated coming home to their wives. They hated spending time with their children. And they just hated the whole idea of like being a family, being committed to a woman, having to spend time with their children, having to be obligated to do parental things, to do adult things. And of course, you know, not only would they tell us this because like they were venting, but men often lose sight of assimilating to an environment that they're in. And so they would always forget that they're in a strip club and that we're there to take money from them. Like, we're not going to give you a sympathy dance because you hate your wife. Like, we're not going to sell you a room for 50% off because you're complaining about how you hate your wife. They're used to the regular world where, you know, most women will accept sympathy as a form of payment in order to do things for men because they feel bad for them. At the strip club, we're not doing that shit. We only talking green. We only talking dollars at the strip club. So I would notice that, and so I would always ask them, like, if you hate your wife, why did you marry her? And in short, that's the reason why they married her. Men don't marry the women that they love. They actually marry the woman that they hate because it's psychological. Whenever you want to earn someone's favor, it's usually because the person is not reciprocating anything back. That's why you feel the need to earn it, right? Because if someone hates you, but then you like that person, it's going to make you work harder for their favor. It's going to make you work harder for their love. Men don't want to be with women that they like, because they understand that the more that they like a woman, the more that they will do for a woman. And the whole purpose of marriage to men, and what they exposed to me in the strip club, is that they get married out of convenience to be able to get a bargain. They marry the woman who they get their bargain from. So he will marry someone that he hates because she's always going to want to cook. She's always going to want to clean. She's always going to want to make sacrifices in order to get him to love her and to like her. And so that's the reason why they end up marrying a woman that they can't stand. And so to kind of take the brunt of dealing with the woman that they hate, they will come to the strip club. They will get on OF. They will follow IG baddies. They will, watch corn, because essentially they need something to offset the, brunt that they're taking daily of having to see a woman that they hate every day. Sleeping with a woman that they hate, sharing space with a woman that they hate. That's why men created a man cave. Men literally created a space in their own home to be away from a woman because they don't genuinely like the woman that they're with. They're just only with her because they're able to extract resources. So essentially, men get married to a food that is healthy for them, but they don't like it, right? So the food that you can't stand, but it's really, really good for you, like spinach, right? They essentially get married to spinach, and they have to eat a lot of spinach, to try to stay full, but that's not going to keep them full. But it's got all the nutrients, it's got all the minerals, it's got all the vitamins, it will keep them healthy, but they have a sweet tooth. Men say this all the time. Well, yeah, I can have a steak, but what's wrong with the little sandwich on the side? Men literally use this, and men have told me this plenty of times in the strip club. They want something extra on the side to get them through the struggle that they have to go through every day based off of the woman that they married. Men have a lot of cognitive dissonance, and I don't think that a lot of women realize that, because for women are more logical than men, okay? That's a lie whenever men are saying that they're more logical. No. Women are more logical, because it only makes sense to get married to someone that you like. But you always have to remember, men operate from a place of lack because they are not a full person. So they have to have cognitive dissonance, because they have to make sure that they get something to make up for their lack, while also getting something that will fuel their desire. You get what I'm saying? So they marry the woman that's going to complete him, while cheating on that wife with a woman that will fulfill his desires. Because men also have to uphold patriarchy. And so men understand that they can't marry a hoe. They can't, because that doesn't uphold patriarchy. You don't marry a hoe under patriarchy. You don't marry a hot girl under patriarchy. You marry a plain Jane because she's going to like you more. She's going to want to do more from you, and also she ain't going to expect much from you because she's already a plain Jane in her normal life. So she isn't going to expect anything from you, because her own life, she doesn't do much. But their desire is the hoe, right? Their desire is the hot girl. Their desire is the IG baddie. So they'll have their, the thing that they need. They'll marry her even though they don't like her. And then the dark side of them that they really, really want to get out and that they really want to practice, that's where they go, and they go on ahead and decide to deal with the 304, the IG baddie, the escort, etc., etc. So one of the things that the strip club taught me is that men's selection of their wife is due to pure hatred. My own father admitted to me that if you are like a baddie, you're very successful, you're very well rounded, he admitted to me that you are wasting your time with men. You are wasting your time trying to find the one. You are wasting your time trying to find love. That goes for all women, but when you are a woman that has your shit together, you're really going to be running in place when it comes to your pursuit. And my father fully admitted, he was like, a very beautiful woman and a very successful woman, when a man wants to actually be adjacent to her, in most cases, it is in an attempt to take her down. It is to humble her, it is to take her down a lot of notches, because at the end of the day, men are ego derived. They have all of their thinking, their being is rooted in their ego. So they want to be able to reflect what they feel as though their ego is attached to. And for most women, or for most men, they are always going to see women as being weaker, more less educated, dumber, just less than, right? Inferior. And so my father actually admitted this with his own life and how he lives his own life. So my father, I'm not trying to brag, but he's like a top 1%er. Okay, he's an entrepreneur and he does like very well for himself. And he refuses to get married because he can accept his nature and he can accept the fact that he's non-committal. So he refuses to get married. But he does have a harem of women because, like, you know, my father, he's got his stuff together. And so he like is juggling multiple women, right? And he has a main girl, and then he has like a woman that he dealt with a long time ago who like he kind of stays in contact with, and then he has like a full-on side chick, right? So I lived with him for a little bit to kind of like understand the dynamic, and I started asking him more and more questions because like he wasn't hiding this shit from me. Like he was not hiding this shit from me at all. And so his main girl is like, she has a job, but she doesn't have a career. And is she pretty? Yeah, like she definitely pretty, but like the side chick, like she's thick, like she's got a body and she's more accomplished than the main girl. Like the side chick has like luxury vehicles, she has a whole condo, she's like doing very very well, like she has a career, like she didn't have a job, right, like the main girl does. And so I literally had asked my father, I was like, what made you choose so and so as the main, and then what made you choose so and so as the side chick, right? And essentially he had said like the side chick, like she gets too much attention, right? She gets too much attention. And essentially it would put him in a predicament where he would have to compete with more people, with more men, because also she's younger than him. The main girl is closer in age with him. He also admitted that the main girl, the attention that she does get, like she gets the attention from like old white men, right? And so that is going to be less competition in his eyes. And also he admitted the fact that like he puts the compliments at like these older people, he puts them on a pedestal compared to the type of attention that the side girl gets, because like the side girl will get attention from like men that are closer around her age. It'll be like more men and things like that. So he had admitted that to me. And so I said, what if I took your main girl and had like, I clone your main girl, but I put her in like a baddie body. Like she's gorgeous, like drop dead gorgeous, like 10 out of 10, but she has the exact same personality as your main girl. I said, who would you choose? The baddie version or your true form main version girl? And he literally said he would choose his main form version of his main girl, because he said too much comes along with dealing with the baddie. Like he would really have to be on his shit and like constantly have to compete with attention from other men if he were to deal with the baddie. Like the main girl gets attention, but not that much attention. She has a job, but she doesn't have a career that could like really outshine him, right? He can be the star. He can be the star of the show, right? My father fully admitted this. And then there was another woman, the other girl, that like he kind of would deal with a little bit. So she was actually older than him, and she was far, far, far exceeded past my father when they had first met. And I had asked him about her, and I was like, so why didn't anything ever go along with you and her? He's like, she was just so well connected. He was like, she knew doctors, she knew lawyers, she would go to these galas and these balls and stuff like that. And essentially he said, he was like, I was just starting my career, like, because mind you, my father is a barber by trade. He be giving me all the tea. Like, if y'all want me to make a video series based off of like the tea that my father will give me from the barbershop talk, please tell me in the comments, because I definitely will do that. But he had admitted to me, he was like, I wasn't shit at the time, and he was like, that was intimidating to me. And so now he still feels the same way. He's like, she's too accomplished. Like, I can't do anything with that. Like, that means that he was like, at this point, he's like, we're pretty much on the same level. And he was like, I can't deal with someone that is like on the same level, or like someone that I would perceive to be above me, because he has to protect his ego. He has to be with someone that will make him feel better. So he is self-aware enough to do that, which further reinforces the idea that usually when you have your shit together as a woman and you're that girl, men that are really, really, really applying pressure onto you, they are really only doing it because they want to take you down, because they're jealous, because you're challenging their ego. So let me tell y'all about how my father exposed a Dusty for me. So I don't live with my father, okay? I live in a completely different state. I often travel for work. So usually what I would do is I would stay at my dad's home whenever I would be back in town, in my hometown. I fucking hate my hometown. Like, I'm sorry, like, it's a bunch of losers there, for real. Like, I'm just keeping it real. So I don't deal with my hometown. It's just like not a great place for growth. Like, it's a very small town. They have like very small minded thinking. So I'm only there just to take time off of work, and I mind my fucking business. But at the time, I kind of felt like dating, and like there's like a large pool of people to date like in my hometown or whatever, and I was just like bored. I didn't have shit to do. So there's a guy who followed me on a social media platform. I'm just gonna call him Quincy. So Quincy follows me on a social media platform, and he's a model, and like he's into fitness, and like he's vegan, and like I actually did bodybuilding. And so like in the past, like there are men that like I would go on dates with, and like we would do like physical activities. So like my first day, like I've been like rock climbing, or like, you know, I have like went to the gym and stuff like that, because like I'm really into, you know, the gym. Like the gym is my life. So he hits me up and he DMs me, and he was like, hey, he was like, we should get together and we should go for a lift or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, let's go to this gym or whatever. All right, cool. So we ended up going to the gym. I had him like put me through this like rigorous, difficult ass workout or whatever. All right, cool. So we're done with the workout, and then we end up talking after we have finished working out. So he's explaining to me like how he was married at one point and he's divorced, and you know, like the reason why they ended up getting divorced was, you know, it was just like because of some drama or whatever. I was just letting him talk and talk and talk and talk, because that's what I do. Like I don't really try to say much, because I want to gather as much information as possible. So it was pretty much saying like, oh, like, you know, are you from here? Like, did you grow up here? And I was like, you know, yeah, like, you know, I'm from like a neighboring, you know, neighborhood, but like in the vicinity, like, yes, like this is where I'm from. I said, but I haven't lived here in years. I said, the only reason why I come here is just when I'm taking time off from work, and I just want to like chill with my family. So I was like, I just crashed with, you know, my father. And so I don't know the exact moment in which I had brought up my father, but when I brought up who my father was, his face like glazed over. Because the thing about it is that my father is really well known in the area that we live in, because he's very, very successful. And he is a barber by trade. He owns his own barber shop. And so he actually cut the heads of like a lot of men, like as boys. He would cut the hair of these boys that I now know as men. And for some of them, like, he's cut their head throughout their whole childhood into their whole adulthood. So when I told him who my father was, his face glazed over. And then I could tell that the conversation on his end kind of got rocky from there. So we ended up ending and then also he told me that he was an engineer. Okay, that's very important to remember. So, the conversation got weird after that or whatever. We parted our ways, and like I remember him telling me like, I'll talk to you later. I knew that that motherfucker was not going to talk to me again. Like, I just knew that it was not going to happen. So anyway, I come back home from the gym, and my father was like, oh, so what's up? Like, you know, what were you out doing? And I was like, he said, were you out with Quincy? And I said, yeah, I was out with Quincy. I'm like, how did you know that? And my father had like also followed me on the social media platform, and he's like, well, I saw Quincy liking your pictures, and you know, you and Quincy were going back and forth. So he's like, because I had already told him that I was going to be going to the gym with someone before I went. I didn't tell him who I was going with. So he was like, oh, so you went with Quincy? And so I was like, yeah. And I was like, Quincy said that he actually knows you. And my father's like, yeah. He was like, you know, he's like, I don't know him, but he was like, you know, as he was like younger and then like as into a teenager, you know, I cut his hair or whatever. So like I had gotten to know him. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. We never brought it up. A couple of days go by, and like I fucking knew, dude did not fucking message me at all. And I knew it had something to do with my father. I knew it did, because just his reaction to him knowing who my father was, I was like, something is up and I want to know what the fuck it is. So I actually ended up messaging him, and I was like, hey, is everything cool? Are you okay or whatever? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I'm fine. He was like, I'm going to be honest with you. He was like, you know, now that I know who your father is, like out of respect, you know, I don't really feel as though we should have anything romantic. I feel as though we are better off just friends. And in my head, I'm like, respect my father. Like, my father just told me that like he doesn't know you for real. Like, he cut your hair, but like in this day and age, in this moment in time, like my father does not know really you as a person for there to be like any type of thing broken when it comes to respect in regards to like you trying to talk to me or like you trying to date me or whatever. So I was mad confused, and like he just kept pushing the fact of the matter with like, I want to respect your father, I want to respect your father, I want to respect your father. In my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, you must have done some shit that ain't worthy of my father's respect then, because there, as far on my father's end, my father is giving me a completely different story. So then I report back to my father, and I say, hey, I'm like, he is pretty much saying that like he doesn't want to talk to me out of respect for you. And so I'm like, what is that all about? Like, I'm cool, but I was like, I just want to know why the fuck he keeps like bringing you up, like, you know, as a reason. So he said, well, you want to know what? He said, actually, one of my homeboys, his daughter used to date Quincy. Within 2 seconds, my father was on the phone with the father of the girl that Quincy dated. And so my father was like, yeah, bro, like, you know, Quincy, you know, was trying to talk to my daughter. And now all of a sudden Quincy is like claiming that he can't talk to my daughter because I'm her father. And so he was like, I just was curious to know, like, what was your experience with Quincy while he was dating your daughter? And essentially the father has said, he was like, Quincy isn't a bad dude, but he was like, there was some domestic stuff that happened between his daughter. And then after Quincy and his daughter had broken up, Quincy was invited to somebody's birthday party within the family. Quincy and his ex-girlfriend were at the same party, and the girl's mom was at the party. He literally tried to hit on the mom at the party that her daughter was at. And so he was like, yeah, he was like, they did have some like DV situation go on, and like, yeah, he tried to mac on her mother after they were broken up. But he said that like they did have like some problems or whatever. And so then I told my father, I was like, yeah, he also told me that he was an engineer. And my father was like, he ain't no fucking engineer. He's like, now that I know. He was like, he is not no fucking engineer. He was like, I think he's like, he works some like laborer job. He was like, he was not an engineer. So he lied to me about what he did as a profession. So that is like the thing. I feel like for a lot of men, they always try to make it seem and shame women for not having a father. And it's like, if every woman had a father like mine that actually like had connections and like knew a lot of people, y'all motherfuckers would not be able to get no pussy from women. Like, y'all would not be able to have pull with any women, because my father shut that shit down so quick. Like, with a quickness, he shut that shit down. And he's like, yeah, he's like, now you got your answer. Now you know why he wanted to use me as an excuse to say that he didn't want to disrespect me, because he knew that he was no fucking good.